Hello and welcome to another edition of Qmailtoaster Video Magazine. I'm your host, Jake Vickers. In this edition, we're going to set up either whatever you want to call it, either a backup server or a caching mail server. And we're going to do this so that the Qmailtoaster server that you've been setting up in the previous videos, let's say that's your main email server for your office. Well, what happens if the power goes out? Well, that mail doesn't get delivered anywhere. And the way email normally works is like if I'm trying to send you a message and your email server is offline, my server will keep trying to deliver it up until a certain point. My personal server is configured to keep trying to deliver it for about 4 days. But a lot of other mail servers may not be configured like that. They might try for a couple hours and then bounce the message back to the original sender. You may recall being able to change that time in the previous videos with the Qlifetime file. Well, to get around this, what you'd normally do is you would set up what's called a backup mail server or a caching mail server. And this would be a server usually in a geographically disparate location, meaning it's in another location than the one your main server is in. That way, if the power or the internet goes out in your office, the chances of the power and internet also being out in the other location are hopefully pretty minuscule. I personally like to try and separate my backup and main servers between different states. That way, if, say, the power is out in North Carolina, chances are the power's not out in California, and vice versa. That way you get the maximum amount of uptime. So what the backup or caching mail server is going to do for you is, let's say the power is out in your main office, and I'm sending you an email. It can't get delivered to you at your main office because your email server's down. No big shocker there. So what my server will then do is it will look up in DNS and it will look for a second MX record. Now, the caching or backup mail server is going to be listed in DNS as another MX record. So my server will see it and say, oh, there's a second mail server. And it'll go and then attempt to deliver the message there. Your caching or backup mail server will accept the message and it will hang on to it until the first email server comes back online. Once the first or main email server comes back online, that caching mail server will then start dumping all the messages it's been holding onto the main server and let the main server go ahead and deliver them to the local accounts. Let's go ahead and jump right into it here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get logged in. And I'm going to continue with the machine that we've set up in the previous videos. At this point, you can go ahead and configure it for a caching mail server. If you are using it as your main mail server, you can follow the previous videos and go ahead and use those as a guideline on how to set up your caching or backup mail server as well. For this example, we're going to assume that you are going to be using the domain another.com. That way, since we've already set up, we already used example.com on this email server in the previous videos. Remember, that's its host name is mail.example.com. We'll use another.com as the domain name that we want to cache. So one of the first things we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into our var qmail control directory, because remember, this is where all of our configuration or control files are located. And we'll get a directory listing there. We'll go ahead and we'll check a couple values like your Qlifetime. You can see that it's set at 14,400, and this is from the previous videos. Now remember that the Qlifetime determines how long a message will stay in the queue on this server before it gets bounced back to the original sender. Now you can do some pretty advanced stuff with some scripting, and we'll probably cover that in another video on changing the Qlifetime depending on whether or not the main server goes offline. For this video, we're going to assume that we're just going to set a high value here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the Qlifetime file by vimming into it. And we're going to set it back to from 14,400 back to the original 86,400. And we'll save and we'll close this. Now that should cache email for about a day. You may want to adjust that depending on your scenario. A day is usually pretty good for an office that has multiple IT people well, somebody's there 7 days a week. If you're the only IT guy and, well, you do like to have weekends off, you may want to set the queue lifetime much higher on your backup mail server. I would suggest a minimum of 2 days and possibly going as high as 4 or 5 days. That way, if the email server goes down on a Friday afternoon at 5:30, just after everybody leaves, you don't have to come rushing back into the office from dinner with the wife or the girlfriend, or the wife and the girlfriend, and have to come back into the office and get the email server back up and running. I've done that quite a few times myself, do it for other companies, and it stinks. Trust me. So set that for something that's reasonable for your environment. And we need to clarify what a caching or backup mail server is going to do at this point. Now remember that when an email comes in and the main server is offline, the caching or backup email server is going to take that email, it's going to accept it, and it's going to hold on to it. It's going to keep trying to deliver it to the main mail server until it comes back online or the queue lifetime is met, which here we've set for 1 day.